Very difficult these days.
Yes.
If I'm not overstepping, was it a relative or a friend?
A colleague.
Hello.
Right.
Hello. Thank you for coming. We haven't started the meeting yet. We are not live. Well, we are live now, actually, but the meeting has not started.
We're in practice session.
Okay.
Hi, John.
Not sure.
Hey, buddy.
Oh. Hi, John.
Hi.
Good seeing you.
Hey, John,
Hey, Bev. How's it
how
going?
are you? I got the third vaccine, so I'm shot.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I got mine last week, and for some reason, I don't know, it hurt more than I think. They went right into the muscle, and it was very, very painful for a day.
Was that Moderna or Pfizer?
Pfizer.
Oh, well, I guess we'll wait and see because Jeremy said he's going to plan his. I didn't expect such a reaction, but you're right. You know, I guess it depends on who gives you the shot and what they hit. Because it really hurt a lot. I couldn't find the place for my arm.
Find a
Well,
place for your arm.
It hurt. I was just, I put it on a pillow. I couldn't find a place where it was comfortable. It hurt.
John, I have 6 p.m. now. With your permission, I'll start the webinar.
That sounds well. Yeah, I think so. Now, after we talked about our
Right.
aged
We are live on
infirmities.
But the meeting hasn't started yet. And John, when you are ready to start, just ask me to call roll first.
How many people do we have so far?
Oh, I believe we actually have a quorum, but you may want to give it a couple of more minutes.
Yeah, let's go to 6:02. 2 minutes. And then Bev and I can just talk more about what ails us.
Well, I got it a week ago today, and my arm is still sore. And of course, I
week?
got a little fever this time. Not bad. This is my third shot. The second shot, that must have been a real strong one because that one really got me. This one wasn't too bad. But at least I know I'm protected.
Yes.
Right.
As a person in my office just said to me, she's going to get a booster whenever a booster is available. 4th, 5th, 6th, it doesn't matter. Just whenever is available, we're going for it.
Yeah. Wow. And Zach is joining us now.
All right, let's wait one more minute and then we'll open it up.
I have 6:02, John.
All right, Jeremy, let's call the roll.
All right, good evening, everybody. I believe all of my board members know how we do this. I'm muting everybody. And when I call your name, please unmute yourself, acknowledge that I've called your name, and then mute yourself again. This is a public hearing, so we go through the entire list. Ramon Acevedo. Sandra Alfonso.
Present.
Thank you. Grisel Amador. Genesis Aquino. Alexa Aviles. Nicholas Azadian.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Body.
Here,
Thank you. Stacy Boyd. Gladys Bruno. Julixa Camposano. Joseph Canali. Justin Collins. John DeLuper. Beatrice DeSapio. David Estrada. Cynthia Felix.
Present.
Thank you. John Fontillis.
I am here.
Thank you. Kin Fung. John Garcia. Anthony Gilio. Cynthia Gonzalez. Hector Gonzalez. Hector, you're muted. Hector, we were speaking just before. Are you still with us? We'll get back to you, Hector. I have not heard you. Kenny Guan. Nicole Huang. Zachary Jacy.
Here.
I'm here. You didn't hear me before.
Thank you. Is that Hector?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Hector.
And that's Zach here. Thank you.
Zach. John Johnston. Beverly Kleinman. Beverly?
Yes, here.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Michael? Barbara Lee? Christina Lem?
I'm here.
Thank you. Jimmy Lee? Paul Mack? Antoinette Martinez? Arelis Martinez? Marilyn Melman? Dan Murphy? Gloria Rodriguez Navoa? Julio Pena?
Aye.
Thank you. And hello. Rovika Rajkishan? Karen Rolnick? Pat Ruiz? Sam Sierra? Brian Slater? Victor Swinton? Cindy Vandenbosch?
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Walsh? Fred Wolf? Cesar Zuniga? John, we have a quorum.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you all for coming out tonight for this public hearing and land use landmarks committee meeting on an application that went to the BSA. And this is all just for record, calendar number 2021-56-BZ, B as in boy, Z as in zebra, seeker reference number 22BSA009K. It is for the address of 341 39th Street, and it is for a special permit to locate a school, the Brooklyn Prospect School, at this location. Who is the applicant that's speaking tonight?
Hi, John. Rich Lobel from Sheldon Lobel. I'll be introducing the project.
Hi, Rich. Thank you. Is there anybody else that's representing the school?
Yes, we've got the entire team on. I guess, would you like everyone to run through introductions?
After just a brief preamble, if I could.
Sure.
And I assume, Rich, you do want to go ahead with this public hearing, correct?
We do.
All right, great. Just want to check.
Sure.
So I just want to mention what we're going to do tonight, the agenda. I'd like to have the applicant and Brooklyn Prospect do a presentation of approximately 20 minutes, if that's okay. So we'll go to about 6:30. And then at that point, I'd like to go over to Land Use Committee members, of which it looks like we've got a full house pretty much tonight of the committee, and have them ask a few questions. Committee members, if you could keep it relatively short and no comments, really just questions about the application, because I do want to reserve the bulk of the time tonight for public hearing comments from the general public and or supporters or advocates or those in against the application. It is a public hearing. We will meet as a committee after in committee session. So would like to try and keep the questions for the committee short and sweet. So with that, Rich, I'll turn it over to you for a short presentation for about 20 minutes.
Thank you, John. Good evening. So as John said, in the interest of time, to keep this as close to 20 minutes as possible, we have a 44-page presentation. And so we will not be going point by point and through the entirety of the conversation. This is a special permit at BSA. So how we'll do this is I'll introduce the project. We're going to have representatives from the school, specifically Trisha Ward and Dana Mwanda, who will discuss the background of Brooklyn Prospect. That will be very brief. There'll be site and land use context, which will discuss the special permit findings. I will do that very briefly. And then we'll get to the real meat of the application, which is that Michael Rose of Hill West will talk about the building. And then importantly, specifically because this is a special permit and there are environmental and traffic and access issues that are raised in the special permit, the remainder of the conversation would go to Kevin Williams at Equity Environmental. And then we're happy, as John had suggested, to answer any and all questions during the public hearing. So with that, I think Fayanne, if you want to load up the presentation, that would be great.
I need permission. Someone needs to give me permission.
Happy to. I'm sorry, who was just talking though?
Fan the time. Yeah, thank you.
Don't take this for my 20 minutes, John.
Jeremy holds the time clock.
If you see my name.
Okay.
Fayanne, you should be able to share your screen.
Thank you. So this is an application for Brooklyn Prospect Charter School. The address is 341 39th Street. Next slide. So as we discussed, this is a BSA special permit application. Brooklyn Prospect is seeking a special permit at BSA to facilitate the conversion of 3 stories, the cellar, first and second floors. There's an existing 10 and 7 commercial building, a 7 and 10 story commercial building. And the use of these floors is contrary to manufacturing regulations. So, and again, we locate the building on 341 39th Street between 3rd and 4th Avenues on the north side of the street. The proposed building would serve as the new Brooklyn Prospect Sunset Yard Elementary School within School District 15. And the BSA application, as stated, seeks a use waiver. So use group 3 schools are not permitted as of right in M12 zoning districts, which is why we seek the special permit. And we note that this school is not within the Southwest Brooklyn IBZ, a frequent topic of conversation, but this is not in the IBZ, so none of those considerations would apply. With that, the next portion of the agenda would go into an introduction to Brooklyn Prospect Charter. And for that, I would defer to Trisha and to Dana, and they can discuss that, and then we'll go back to land use and context.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us and creating the space for us to talk about Brooklyn Prospect. My name is Trisha Ward. I'm the CEO of Brooklyn Prospect Charter Schools. I took over actually in June, following our two founders, Dan Rubenstein and Penny Marzulli, who some of you may know. And previous to this, have spent my career in education, almost 20 years as an educator, starting as a teacher, principal manager. Brooklyn Prospect Charter Schools was founded 13 years ago in District 15 as an intentionally diverse charter network aimed at providing an excellent education to students across the District 15, serving a very diverse student body and bringing an international focus to the educational program that we serve, that we provide to our students. We have, in our 13-year history, have built a really strong partnership with the communities in which our schools are located. And we aim to really recruit both a student body and a faculty that mirrors the diversity of Brooklyn and the demographics of the neighborhoods in which we are situated. Currently, we have 6 schools in Brooklyn in District 13 and District 15 and serve about 2,200 students. And we have 400 amazing educators who, like I said, also just mirror the diversity of the communities that we serve. And so really proud of the schools and where they're situated. A little bit about our instructional program on the next slide. Our instructional program is designed for making sure that our kids are college ready. Our K-12 program is fashioned and founded in the IB program principles, and our students in high school culminate their experience by being able to earn an international baccalaureate diploma, which we're really proud of. Our high school was recently ranked in US News and World Report. And all of that foundation starts with making sure that we have strong elementary and middle schools. And so really excited to be able to turn it over to Dana, who runs one of our very strong elementary schools that currently serves kinder and first grade students and families.
Hello, good evening. My name is Dana Mwanda. And like Tricia said, I just want to echo the gratitude for making the space for us tonight to talk about our school. Like she said, my name is I'm the principal of what's now Windsor Terrace Elementary School, seeking the special permit to be located in Sunset Park on 39th Street. And I've been with Brooklyn Prospect for 8 years. I've been in education for 13. And I actually was a student in a District 15 public school when I was a child. So this is really very near and dear to my heart. And our school is a really special place. We were founded last year and we were really proud to have a safe year of schooling, but not just safe. We had kids who were happy and thriving and learning to read and be in spaces together. And it was a really successful year. So we're looking to continue that this year and in perpetuity. So thank you so much for sharing this space with us.
Great. On the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our school leadership. So our school network leadership, it also mirrors the diversity that we aim to mirror in our students and our faculty. We attract and retain really diverse leaders, and on the call with me is our Chief Financial Officer, Hillary Prince, who is also a founder. John McIntosh is our Chief Academic Officer, and he's not on this call, but also again, is a part of the key leadership, the talented leadership that we recruit. I would say our network leaders, our principals, and our board members represent the diversity of the communities that we serve and that we're situated in, and really help to make sure that we're driving decisions that are in the best interest of our kids and the communities in which we're situated. We complement our network and school leadership with a strong partnership between our parents. We have a parent teacher student organization at each of our schools, and those are the leadership of those committees are parents who volunteer their time and also make sure that they foster really strong relationships with that broader school community. And so we have strong representation from our community and the families that we serve on these very active PTSO organizations that partner with our schools. in terms of where our schools are located, we have this map right here shows our schools across the Brooklyn area. And as you can see, we are situated in districts 15 and districts 13. And over the past 5 years, we've taken a very slow and steady approach to starting schools, making sure that we have a really strong foundation in our schools as they're growing. And before we add a new school, that we're very thoughtful about the program and making sure that we are truly meeting the needs of our diverse community. And so really excited to be able to have our Windsor Terrace Elementary School, hopefully, or soon to be our Sunset Yard Elementary School, be able to have its permanent location and continue that trajectory of growth, eventually feeding into our Windsor Terrace Middle School, which is also moving into the same similar area on 17th Street, and have a K-8 feeder pattern that would eventually go to our high school and after that onto college. So really excited to be able to kind of share this like long-term plan and with this committee and just our focus for our kids and our families. Thank you. Finally, I'll just end with this piece here, which just shows our growth trajectory for the Sunset Yard Elementary School. Currently, we serve about 100 students between kindergarten and first grade. Each year, we add a grade level, and we'll be adding about 55 students from District 15 until the school eventually serves K through 5. Like I said, after that, those students would move on to our middle school, which will be located on the 17th Street area nearby, and then eventually move on to our high school. And that would help complete a K-12 feeder pattern for our kids and our families who are really looking for continuity in their school experience.
You're on mute, Richard.
Thank you, Tresha and Dana. To go to site and land use context again, very briefly before we go to the building design. The existing conditions are such: the premises is block 704 lot 54 and is on 39th Street between 3rd and 4th Avenues. We are within an M12 zoning district in Brooklyn Community District 7. This enables us, being in an M1, to go for the special permit, which we'll discuss later. The site measures approximately 18,031 square feet. So we've got I think approximately 180 feet of frontage along 39th and a depth of 100 feet. And the premises backs onto train tracks that are not widely used. The premises is improved with 2 buildings. There's a 7-story component and a 10-story component that are joined internally. Again, the application here would be for the use in the cellar, 1st and 2nd stories. Next slide. So just by way of context, this is an area which is accustomed to schools. You can see the proposed site of the school in a red dashed line. And then within 1,000 feet of that, and more specifically within a block and a half, we've got 4 schools. I won't recite them because John's limiting me on time, but I will tell you can read them right here. So this is it's nice to be joining what is already a thriving academic community. Next slide. Merely the zoning map, which shows the M12 district. And I think the more telling slide is not the tax slide, which is next and shows the basic outline, but the land use map here. So what do we note about that? The first is we note that, again, as part of the special permit, you need to be located within 400 feet of a district in which the school may be located as of right. We are 160 feet north of an R6B, which is right behind those residential buildings on 39th Street. We're roughly 181 feet north of that R7A you see to the southeast, as well as within 400 feet of other residential districts, including an R7A to the northeast. So while oftentimes we find ourselves at or close to one residential district, here we are close to 3 residential districts. Importantly, also as far as site context, if you take a look at 39th Street itself and look across the street, you see one of 3 types of uses. One are manufacturing uses. You see one manufacturing site colored purple, and this is how the land use maps are coded. Then you see a number of gray sites. Those are open uses. But most importantly, the prevalent colors here, orange and yellow, are residential buildings. So we are across, despite being an M12 district, from no fewer than 16 2, 3, and 4-family buildings. This gives this block between 3rd and 4th Avenues an entirely residential character. This is important for citing a school here, given the context of what's in the immediate area and what is appropriate. Again, although we are seeking a use waiver, the residential buildings here are not permitted in an M12 as of right. So we are already facing a block that is close to 80 to 85% or greater non-conforming residential uses. And residential uses by zoning are compatible with school uses. So this would be an ideal site and location for the school. Fan, if you want to page through the next 2 slides, you'll see just pictures citing the property. You see the 7 and 10-story building with a plethora of residential buildings across and schools in the background. With that, I would defer to Michael Rose from Hill West, who can discuss some of the particularities about the building, after which I will run through the special permit findings briefly, and then Kevin will discuss the environmental findings with regards to the special permit. Michael?
Hi, how are you? My name's Michael Rose. I'm an architect with Hill West Architects, and just thank you again for the opportunity to present our design for the BPCS Sunset Yards Elementary School. 341 39th Street is an existing 10-story commercial office building located mid-block on the north side of the street between 3rd and 4th Avenues in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. The existing building, as you see on the screen, it was gut renovated in 2017 and converted into all office usage. That renovation, it included all new painted aluminum fixed and operable windows with double pane insulating glass. That 2017 renovation also included a major overhaul of all new HVAC systems for the building, which is comprised of a split system VRF units and condensers, which are typically located on each floor and also on the roofs, which then connect to indoor air handling units via branch connection boxes. Our proposed project, the Brooklyn Prospect Charter School Sunset Yards Elementary School, will occupy the cellar, 1st and 2nd floor, and will comprise approximately 36,000 square feet of interior space. Also want to just quickly mention our building project team also includes McNamara Salvia structural engineers, Solomon Engineering, mechanical engineers, Equity Environmental Engineering, JMZ Zoning, and DBI Projects, who's doing the project management. Let me just quickly run you through the program. If you could go to the 1st floor. And, just talk about some key design points for the school. So this is actually the 2nd floor. If you could go back to the 1st, sorry. I can start in the cellar.
I think it's a little out of order, yeah.
Here we go. So the 1st floor is the main entry. And the main entry to the school is on the 1st floor on the sort of southwest side of the building, right off of 39th Street. This entry is used exclusively by the school. Once inside the entry, there's a gracious school lobby you can see on the plan, where most of the school administrative functions directly are adjacent. Also on the 1st floor, we've located all the classrooms for the kindergarten through the 2nd grade. The classrooms on this floor and on the 2nd floor are typically about 625 square feet. And they all, as you can see, have quite a large amount of abundant natural light. On this floor, we are aiming to maintain ceiling heights of between 9'10" and about 11 feet average. So quite gracious heights. If you go to the 2nd floor. On the 2nd floor, this is the cellar, I'm sorry. So on the 2nd floor, we've located the remaining classrooms for the 3rd to 5th grade. We've also located some of the specialized classrooms that the school has in their program, including things like art and science. There'll also be a school library and a few specialized reading rooms for smaller classes. On this floor, we're also able to take advantage of a setback terrace and are able to create a 2,200 square foot outdoor play space, which will be surrounded with an approximately 10-foot high fence for protection. You can sort of see on this, the main interior circulation will also contain a lot of some various offices and counseling rooms to be used by the school. And on this floor, we aim to maintain about a 9'4" ceiling height within the classroom spaces. If you go to the cellar, please. So the cellar floor, which really I think is a little bit of a misnomer because it has such nice natural light, because in the back, the rear yard where the level of the grass is below the level of the floor. So where actually you have some of the best light in the space is really in the cellar on that north face. We intend to locate the school cafeteria, a specialized music classroom, and a multi-purpose gym space. So it's sort of the heart of the school where a lot of the sort of activities where everyone comes together happens at this level. It also has a really gracious ceiling height, and we aim to achieve about 11-foot ceiling height in a lot of the public spaces at this level. The mechanical system for the school will utilize the existing building condensers and will add new ducted air handlers or indoor units. The design includes one indoor unit for each classroom, multiple indoor units for the larger rooms, and one indoor unit to cover multiple rooms for some of the smaller administrative space. Each indoor unit will have an individual thermostat to control heating and cooling. ERV units, both the existing ones and we're going to add a few, will be used to achieve fresh air supply, meeting and exceeding any code minimum. We also intend to utilize MERV 13 air filters in the project. The building is currently fully sprinklered to code, but in the proposed school space where we're splitting up the space, the existing sprinkler system will be modified to provide full coverage to all the areas of the new school space to always meet and exceed any New York City code requirements. The building has an existing fire alarm system, which will be modified to include smoke detectors, strobe lights, horn strobes, and pull stations as required to meet any of the sort of code requirements. Hill West Architects is really proud to have been included with this team tasked with creating the school, and we look forward to seeing the BPCS Sunset Yards Elementary School becoming an active and welcome member of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to run through the special permit findings in about 1 minute, and then I'm going to defer to Kevin and Amber, who are going to discuss the environmental aspects of the project. So this is a special permit. What does that mean? Special permits are not variances. So a variance at BSA requires that BSA approve something that's contrary to zoning law. That's not this. A special permit has very specific and narrow findings under the zoning resolution. And if an applicant meets those findings, it's described as an obligation or a duty of the administrative agency to approve the special permit. So what are the findings here? There are 4. There's the first finding that within the neighborhood to be served by the school, there's no opportunity to obtain a feasible site for an as-of-right location because such sites are occupied by substantial improvements. And we'll show you in a moment the slide that demonstrates over 17 sites that we looked at, none of which qualified for the requirements that were needed for the school here. The second is just a measurement, which is that the school is located not more than 400 feet from the boundary of a district wherein such school is permitted as of right. As we talked about before, there's 3 residential districts nearby, including one as close as 160 feet, qualify the application pursuant to 7319B. The last 2 findings, which will be discussed by Kevin and Amber, again, at the discretion of the chair, is finding C, that there's adequate separation from noise, traffic, and other adverse effects to be achieved through sound attenuating exterior wall and window construction, or the provision of adequate open areas. This is an environmental finding so that proposed student, staff, faculty at the school are not adversely affected by the surrounding M1 district. And then finally, the D finding that the movement of traffic through the street is such that students are able to be delivered safely to and from the school, and the application is referred to DOT for a report with regards to the safety of children. These 2 findings are the ones that are addressed by Kevin and Amber, as they will in a moment. And the board is, of course, always able to provide additional appropriate conditions and safeguard. That's the Board of Standards and Appeals. So the next slide demonstrates the search criteria that were used to find an as-of-right location. You can see the location of the school in green as a green flag, and then the locations of the other schools within School Community District 15. Again, we looked at several criteria. Whether the space was newly renovated, the location, budgetary and time constraints, and the local community. This was found to be the site at which the proposed school was feasible. Again, we have the benefit of having an existing building and can occupy the space relatively quickly in comparison with other spaces. Next slide. And the next slide merely sets forth those distances we talked of. So we are within 400 feet of a residential district. In fact, within 200 feet of 2 residential districts. With that, I would defer to a discussion from Kevin and Amber to discuss the C&D findings. John, I want to be cognizant of our time. I know that we've gone 20 minutes, but these are, substantive findings with regards to the special permit.
Yes.
Again, I know I'd love for them to have the opportunity to discuss them.
I am going to give Kevin and Amber 4 more minutes, if I may. And Kevin and Amber, if you can appeal to our hearts and minds. As I say again, our hearts and minds in those 4 minutes. I hope I'll leave it.
I'll try my best, John.
Thanks,
So I'm gonna move. So there's a noise finding, an air finding, and a traffic finding as associated with the C&D findings. And the noise. We're going to improve the windows. We're going to add enhanced attenuation where needed. And so if we move to the next slide. So in terms of air quality, obviously this is a very important issue given its proximity to the Gowanus and the on-ramp to the Gowanus. And so that requires multiple types of seeker environmental analysis. And as we know from our previous hearing before this board, we also provided an enhanced analysis based on DEP air pollutants for 5 different air pollutants. So the air industrial emission screening, there were no active industrial emitters within the screening area. So that analysis passed. The PM 2.5 atypical roadway analysis is required when a use is within 200 feet of an elevated roadway, such as the Gowanus or the on-ramp. That also passed that screening. But having said that, and given the past health history associated with Sunset Park, we did a similar screening before, which had similar outcomes of another location that we looked at this area. I'll share those as desired and required. So go to the next slide. So the major thing is, listen, I watched the 2-hour hearing on last mile facilities, which I thought was wonderful. I've been aware of the last mile facilities, some 5 of them that are emerging in Red Hook, some that have already come online. I'm involved in projects in that area, including community representatives trying to do what you're trying to do, which is to control this onslaught and work with DOT that has not, sort of communicated with the community about the potential impacts of this. So I want you to know that I'm mindful of that. In the background of our discussions, we'll consider that. And obviously, DOT sort of caught flat-footed on a long-range plan. And in terms of considering that use group as a warehouse, everybody's trying to come to the forefront and deal with it. And so when we first analyzed this site, we were not aware nor were informed in a pre-meeting with DOT, which we did about 6 months ago, about the enhanced consideration of this corridor for those uses. We have, however, contemplated and evaluated them in the context of both bus and vehicular and freight movement that moves through the corridor. And so if you go to the next slide, there's basically, several components that we look at, including Vision Zero crashes. Now, it's not going to offer any members of this board respite to say that the 2 adjoining intersections are not considered high crash intersections. There have been no pet accidents. There's 1 bicycle accident, and there have been car crashes at this corner over the past several years. None of them have led to fatalities, but that does not mean that it's not a condition that we take lightly, and it would be part of our planning efforts with DOT. So go to the next slide. I would like to hop right to, so all the intersections here have high visibility crossings. They have, where they don't have tactile ped ramps, we would be enhancing them. Where there are possibilities for daylighting and bulb out on the entries and exits to 3rd and 4th, we are in the process of exploring those with DOT, given the geometric movements that need to be made here. So this basically simply to summarize the pedestrian volumes that are moving through the corridor. So primarily the trips are sourced across Fourth. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And I'm sorry, I have to gloss over a lot of this. So the main issue here is you have a parking lane on the opposite side of the street. We had discussed with DOT some 6 months ago a reversal of that condition, which represented the construction condition when the building was rehabbed, where they shifted the parking lane to the school frontage site. And that would be the intent here. And it would be, the intent then would also to define a school no standing zone. And in the course of our meeting with DOT, they asked us to do multiple other additional analyses. One was a parking impact study, which we have to do on this. So we would lose 4 cars, but there's a no parking basically all day, currently on the south side of the street on 39th. So in actuality, we would be taking very few operable spaces for residents that park in the area. Go to the next slide. So this slide basically documents those geometric movements that we would be making. In addition to, coming up with a drop-off and arrival plan, in concert with that, we did a curb utilization study to document the activity of the 2 parking facilities, or the parking facility to the west of the site, as well as there's an auto body repair facility that doesn't do on-site painting, that has a vehicle storage yard next to school. The curb utilization showed that, we went down multiple days. It's relatively modest. It's literally very little traffic during, I don't even think we had any cars entering or exiting. We do have that documentation. However, about that area, the idea is it's storage to process basically 1 car at a time, which is all the garage can handle. And so there's a yard there of cars waiting to be worked on, but it's a very inactive curb cut. And we found the same condition along the corridor. There is an active business next door to us, an office that has its own parking facility next door. And those are fairly regular movements in terms of volumes, arriving at a specific time of day, and wouldn't generally conflict with the majority of pedestrians or vehicular traffic that's entering on the corridor. So it's relatively modest, but this basically documents the lane reversal. Then onto this physical improvement plan, we have a student safety plan so if you go to the next slide. So go to the next one on this, and then go one more. We can talk about parking and adjustments to that as needed. So the idea here is to put personnel at both opposite ends, a crossing guard on the 3rd and 44th, 3rd Avenue and 39th Street, and the 4th Avenue and 39th. And there's already crossing guards present at this corner, given the volumes of students that go up and down this corridor. So we get double protection in that area. In addition, we're deploying 3 separate student safety personnel that would manage the curbside access cars in and out, release them with ongoing traffic. And we have an overall manager and a flagger. We also have a protocol in place for the existing curb cut, which is only for loading and storage of materials for what the building is currently vacant. And that would be, part of the lease rider that doesn't allow, potentially entering vehicles into the building to conflict with students arriving and departing. So there's a lot more detail. There's a lot more discussion, so I'm going to cut it off here and just be aware any sort of materials that the board needs and the questions that need to be asked, we're available to do so.
And John, in conclusion, we want to occupy 36,000 square feet of a 163,000 square foot unoccupied building on a street in which most of the uses on the street are residential or open uses. We feel that this is a strong application, both with regards to the BSA findings, as well as with regards to the character of this block. And with that, the entire applicant team would be thrilled to answer any questions on behalf of the committee.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. And I apologize, Kevin. I know that was really pushed, but again, I do want to open it up to land use committee members during this first period of questions, and those committee members, if you could actually ask questions that might relate more to, I think the elephant in the room is obviously the traffic conditions that Kevin had just mentioned. Maybe Kevin can respond to those questions directly at at the beginning, and then after, I would say about 10, 15 minutes of committee members' questions, we'll turn it over to the public hearing section where members of the public can weigh in. I would like to say, honestly, because, we're all pals here. God, that sounds like from Succession, doesn't it? That look, I mean, we went through this 2 weeks ago. Those of you at Brooklyn Prospect, we had another school come in front of us in a similar situation. Although I will say there are some differences, significant differences here. We did want to have two separate hearings for the two schools, not trying to say that you both had to run through the same gauntlet. But you'll hear tonight several things that may be reminiscent of the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure Rich has given you a sense of what that happened. I know, Kevin knows and Amber knows specifically the topics that were raised originally. Not saying that this is the same, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that, and thank you, Kevin, for making note of the hearing that we had on last mile trucking. This is a truck route. This is something that has been very difficult for CB7 to address in terms of truck traffic in our district. And frankly, a lot of the comments you'll probably hear tonight are, how does a school, specifically for K through 2, K through 3, exist on a street like this, given that, and I guess maybe my first question, if I may, just sort of chair's prerogative here, was any thought given maybe of flipping it, maybe the high school going here and the Windsor Terrace site being the location for the elementary school? I don't know if Tricia or Dana, that's a question, or Hillary, I guess. If you want to handle that.
I can answer that. And I'm Hillary Prince. Hi, thank you all for having us again. I'm Chief Financial Officer of Prospect Schools. The two school programs are not the same size. They're actually significantly different. So our high school is approximately 600 students and still growing. And this school will only be about 330 students. So it's a different square footage that we're looking for.
I understand, but there is a big difference between little kids and bigger kids. Being the father of a high school student myself, when I do see him, I think he's much more aware of the surroundings than, say, a K through 3 student might be. But again, that was a question I just had. Let me turn it over let's go with Joan, Nick, Cindy, then Julio. And then those of you board members who do have questions, please raise your hand and we'll call on you in order. So Joan? Oh, yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am the chair of the school site selection committee for Community Board 7. And I know how difficult it is to find a site. I get in my car, I drive up and down blocks along the avenues, and I take a lot of specifics in consideration. The first is the traffic on the block. The traffic on this block is horrendous. It's a truck route, it's a bus route for 2 buses, the B70 and the B35. People park half on the sidewalk and half in the street. This site was also brought up to my committee, and my committee reviewed it and took it off the list. It also came up at a hearing with the Department of Education, Construction Authority. It was discussed amongst the full board, and it was turned down at that time. I appreciate you guys coming to us. You've done a great job in Windsor Terrace. You have a great school here. I see the school going up on 17th Street, which is another disaster traffic block that goes up to the Prospect. But this site, I just cannot see small children on that block going to school. Again, as John said, if it was a high school, well, I would really consider it. But that block is just, it's a narrow block also. Maybe if it was a little wider, possibly, but sorry, guys. That's it, John.
Too many Johns on this call. I kept unmuting John Johnson. Sorry, John. All right, let's go to Nick, then Cindy, then Julio. Nick?
Certainly. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. Keeping with the theme of traffic, even with the traffic improvements that you guys were speaking about, how do you intend to make the site safe, knowing that this is an active truck route and knowing the active volume of truck traffic that will be increasing in the neighborhood?
Hi, Nick. I'll try to address that question. Thank you for that, and obviously that's a pretty direct question. So the background on this for a two-lane road, the travel volumes that we saw during the peak hours was approximately 350 vehicles, which is quite comparable to many other schools that we've had approved before the Board of Standards and Appeals. That doesn't make it correct. Just giving some background. The number of truck that we observed during that hour was 35. And that also is comparable to several other recently approved locations and reviewed locations by the DOT. Now, the other question and the X factor in the room, and I think you guys all indicated it on your hearing, is what can we expect of the last mile volumes? And, you know, the primary route at both the FedEx Center and the last mile and warehousing facilities and Red Hook is to the 20th Street corridor. That's why FedEx located there. Having said that, the problem that I think we all have is there hasn't been a comprehensive study on the routing of those vehicles, either the smaller vehicles that emerge out on the end point of a last mile facility that we see people carrying goods to and primarily comprised of smaller vehicles. This road does not allow the 53 feet truck that the primary truck routes allow. And this is a secondary route as identified by the DOT's map. Now, in terms of how do we deal with the traffic, given A, Nick, the existing conditions that we're aware of, and B, the unknown conditions stemming from, emergent and likely to grow last mile facilities. So in terms of the emerging traffic that may occur on this corridor, as I said, logistically, I don't think a great deal of that traffic is going to come forth, but without DOT operational plans on that matter, it's certainly hard to tell, and it's certainly hard to have a completely open broker on that, since basically the plans on this popped up over the last 2 months in terms of DOT's response, and we're trying to assimilate that and have discussions with DOT about what they forecast in addition to this corridor. But in terms of the existing operations, we knew what this corridor is about. We understand the mix of land uses. We also understand that it interfaces the busiest institutional corridor with 3rd Avenue in this entire section of Brooklyn. And so when we were siting the school, and it's about 300 feet to 250 feet from the 4th Avenue corridor, we felt that the ambient presence of all of these students walking and the crossing guards in the area, when you add, a sort of responsible arrival and departure protocol that breaks up the arrival and departure of students. And one of the things that I wanted to address was this notion that, somehow a high school might be better suited here. And I don't want to argue about the differences of those, but I will state this, you know, K through third are going to have caregivers coming with them. These are not going to be students that are walking alone. These are, you know, and I've observed operations at several other Brooklyn Prospect locations, and, you know, I have not seen young children of this age walking alone, and I'm sure the school can speak to that more, but that is one of the aspects. And the other aspects is, of course, our arrivals and dismissals are, you know, sort of off of the peaks. We went out and observed, you know, a lot of the traffic that moves through here, and a lot of it is controlled by the phasing at the 3rd Avenue and 39th Street signal, which appears to be a little bit off phase, because what happens is it's holding a lot of traffic back in, you know, the Sunset Park Maritime area, and those cars wind up flooding down the corridor, and then you basically have an empty street. And one of the things that you'll see, because parking is not allowed on this corridor, is, you know, once that goes away after 8 a.m., there are periods where it's sort of like punctuated equilibrium. You know, you have a lot of volumes and then it's dead, and then you have a lot of volumes and it's dead. And so one of the things in terms of learning your involvement operationally is to sort of document that and work with it. But what we preliminarily outlaid is, you know, a set of human resources and an arrival and dismissal protocol that we're still, by the way, looking at alternatives for, where we can shed the traffic. And that potentially means alternative drop-off bus locations where other buses are dropping off with students, you know, on 4th Street to reduce the traffic there. And that's something that we've been discussing since we, you know, have become aware of the last mile concerns and, you know, communications that we've had with DOT, such as they are over the last several weeks. So I do want you to know that we are researching alternative plans given this, because what you do have here is a nice wide sidewalk. You have intersections, particularly at the 4th and 39th Street, that already have a lot of students crossing, and you have crossing guards there. And you also have fully improved sidewalks in front of the building, you know, and so you have very little pedestrian traffic. And to this notion about cars parking on the sidewalk, I mean, at 8 a.m., those cars are all gone. There are no cars parked on the sidewalk. I have seen and witnessed no cars parking on the sidewalk, either with operations in the area. So the main thing here is, if you know, obviously the elephant in the room is the traffic operations, but in terms of the sidewalk environment and in terms of the industrial environment, we have like a positive siting criteria. So Nick, I'm sure that doesn't satisfy your questions, but, you know, we've deployed a lot of human resources and an operating plan to drop students off and to control that traffic moving in and out of the corridor. And we're exploring off-site operations to minimize the bus operations on this corridor, to basically have caregivers potentially walk groups of students from school buses once they arrive to the school. And we think that is maybe a possibility that we can explore with the board's consent.
I thank you for that answer. It was very comprehensive, and I think that answers that question for me. I'm sure the other board members will have additional questions in that regard. I do have 2 other very brief questions for the architect on the project. Number 1, I just want to confirm that all of the heating and cooling will indeed be done via electric heat pump. And then number 2, in terms of the ventilation, would you guys be willing to utilize HEPA filtration in lieu of MERV 13 filters? And then finally, ensuring that any and all outside air brought into the building is drawn from the 4th Avenue side of the building rather than the sides of the building facing the highway.
Hi, this is Mike Rose. Let me quickly just making notes of your comments. First, we are the architect and we are working with a mechanical engineer. I can probably answer some of these and maybe on a couple of them get back to you. Off of the top of my head, we have obviously, like a lot of groups, studied the notion of putting HEPA filters into, you know, existing buildings. As you know, a lot of the systems already exist in this building, and one of the difficulties in the HEPA filter is retrofitting it into existing equipment.
To clarify, it's not so much putting it into existing equipment. It would be more so because you're adding supplemental units
Yeah.
for what this is. So for any of the new systems, specifically handling outside air, not so much the recirculating systems, we would request that HEPA filtration be added. And then secondly, it appears, at least from outward inspection, your louvers are essentially facing 4th Avenue, and we just wanted to confirm that only those will be utilized for outside air and not those facing the highway or the off-ramp.
Again, I think for those, I would have to defer to our, I couldn't give you a specific answer, some of our requirements and where we're taking the air from, but certainly I will try to get an answer to that, a comprehensive answer to that, and get back to you for how we're bringing in the fresh air. I do know from working with the mechanical engineer that, it hasn't been a problem, but I think this is the first time it's been posed to us, from which side. So I think, from the 4th Avenue side, if you're talking about the, I guess the west end of the building, I don't believe we're drawing any air from the west or the east side, only air from the north or south. We do have a setback terrace that, a lot of the mechanicals, the way the original building renovation was designed, that there's a setback terrace, I guess it would be in the northwest corner, which we showed you on our 3D drawing. And I know that is the source of a lot of the air, but that's really just for some of the equipment which is inside of those mechanical rooms. So I'd have to get back to you.
It's doing a heat exchange. So I guess really the nature of the comment, just to be brief, is really we're concerned about, the entrained particulate specifically coming in from the highway. MERV 13 is not going to essentially filter that out just because it's too fine, and HEPA will. And so that's really the basis of the comment that we'd like you to get back to us on.
Okay, will do. Thank you for that. Sure.
Thanks, Nick. You're asking an architect about mechanical systems. You know what my answer to that would be. All right, moving to Cindy, and then Julio, and then Zach, and then John Johnson. Cindy.
Hi, I just have a quick question, which is what percentage of the students that you currently serve across your schools have disabilities? This is children with disabilities are, underserved in our district. And so we're just wondering if you could share that number.
Tricia or Dana?
Sure. I can jump in, and then Dana, if you want to give specifics about your individual school. Overall, across our district, it's about 40% of our students have learning disabilities. We have a really robust staffing model to serve those students and ensure that there are both teachers inside the classroom, teachers outside of the classroom. And I would say we have a robust network team that also has specialty in serving students with disabilities. Dana, you can give specifics on your individual school, the percentage.
Thank you. So right now we are not fully grown school, but the school that we have right now, about 19 to 20% of our students have IEPs. Some of them came to us with IEPs from pre-K. And then we have a robust, like Trissa said, program that is very inclusive by nature. We make our schedule for inclusivity. We have an ICT class in every grade. We make sure that we work with our related service providers and our CSE rep to ensure that all of our students get the IEP related services that they are entitled to. And we do lots and lots of teacher development around best practices for working with a plethora of students. But we really pride ourselves on our inclusive model and having kids in the least restrictive environment possible.
And Cindy, I misspoke. Across our network is around 19-20%.
All right, great. Thank you. Julio.
Good afternoon. I was almost about to say good morning. Good afternoon. This is Julio. I'm also the chair of the education committee. And I mean, like some other folks, I have a lot of concerns. And Um, I guess my biggest question is and concern, and it just so happens Zach, who's on the call, is having some audio issues, and he has a similar question, and we were about to ask the same one. Is I know someone earlier mentioned the traffic along 39th Street, which is something that this board has been discussing and mentioning ad nauseum for many years. And with the recent conversion of 20th Street from 2 ways to 1 way, the board recently also found out that Department of Transportation has made 39th Street, or has rerouted truck traffic from 20th Street to 39th Street. So not only has 39th Street is also a truck traffic route for usual traffic, traffic that is being rerouted from 20th Street is now moving to 39th Street. So there's additional traffic that I think is not being considered. I think there's also, it's mentioned that, the B70 and B35 bus route goes along 39th Street, which is essentially the lifeblood of this community that many folks rely on. But there's also, I think, another consideration of the Jackie Gleason Depot, which is right up the block, that numerous buses go up and down 39th Street to get to and from the depot that are off, I guess what's the right word, not in service, from many different bus routes in the area, from the B1 to the 35, the 37, 63, every bus route in South Brooklyn goes to the Jackie Gleason. And I think the characterization that, this is not a high density route, I think is not true. It's a very busy street. I live just up the block, and it is not a day goes by that there's not some kind of issue with this route. So I guess my question is, with the consideration that 39th Street is going to increase in traffic because of the 20th Street reroute, and I'm not sure if this is the similar question to John previously, but I guess what kind of conversations are you having with the Department of Transportation in this increase of traffic? And I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah,
Julio, sorry, Kevin, can I just ask, Julio, you said that you and Zach had been made aware of this reroute from the Transportation Committee, or where did we find this out?
I guess this was from the letter that the board received. I think it was last week or 2 weeks prior from the 20th Street reroute.
Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
Signed by the Borough Commissioner Keith Bray.
Okay, so this was related to the 19th, 20th Street truck route change. And part of that, they said that they were sending trucks down 39th Street in lieu of 20th?
Correct.
Okay, Kevin, I don't know if that came up in your screening analysis.
No, I mean, of course, I mean, I caught this, and so let me just say, my communication with DOT's probably not been even as good as yours has. So, and we try to,
which isn't saying very much, Kevin.
And yeah, I mean, listen, the more I watch this board, the more I appreciate everything you guys do and all the time you put forward. And you run your hearings very well. And, unfortunately, DOT's, as I said, has had 6 months to make us aware of these machinations. And basically the first time that I heard this notion was a very quick and subtle comment in your guys' hearing on this matter that Julio referenced. And there's no documentation on this. There's no information from DOT about this deference given or the shift from 20th. And honestly, from a land use perspective, it makes no sense whatsoever. I think there are a bunch of alternative measures that can be done, but that cat is sort of out of the bag. So Julio, in terms of being able to project those trips, given that you guys just found out, and, basically I found out on my Saturday, catching up with your video and then doing my research on this, and there's, no guidance other than a general July letter noting a strategy for last mile facilities. It's not so much as a strategy as a white paper talking about how important last mile facilities are. There doesn't appear to be a vetted plan here or consideration, not about the school, about the fact that half of this street, running to center Brooklyn is a residential street, and so that's why when we originally, reviewed this site, we couldn't take in advance long-term traffic generation resulting from like an overnight switch and deference to the main major traffic corridor. And it doesn't make sense because, you have Prospect Avenue, which is a limited access roadway that 20th connects to, which should be your east-west connector, not 39th Street running through the heart of your institutional zone. So my ability to project trips lacking a comprehensive assessment of where these last mile trucks are going to be generating and going through is an issue. Now, in terms of the depot, we certainly have captured those volumes coming on this roadway as well as normal stops. So we've counted, all of the buses and looked at how they're sequenced and how they arrive during arrival and departure time, and evaluated, the maintenance and protection of traffic that is needed to make sure that cars are arriving and releasing. And the traffic generation, just in terms of private vehicles, projected to the school is relatively minor. I think we're looking at something like 23 to 24 additional vehicles and 3 yellow buses in total. The school is not particularly large, but it is what it is. It has to be dealt with. But to be completely honest with Julio, I'm just getting this information, and there are 0 projections. So I don't know what guided DOT's viewpoint, on the reversal of the 2 lanes down to 1, and then, basically saying that this corridor can handle the additional traffic, and what judgments were made there. And in terms of communicating with DOT, they have a limited bandwidth, they're dealing with a lot of matters, so they don't really just, we do a preliminary review, and it's one of these things that they never used to do at BSA Actions, is go to DOT prior to application, which literally is captioned a fatal flaw meeting, right? So we don't go and spend the client's money, put the school's hopes up, because we've been through this before, and we're constantly learning about where the line is drawn, and when to approach the community board and how to approach the community board and that sort of thing. And the thing is, as early as possible is obviously the response to that. But here we did everything we could. DOT came back with, like I said, a couple of standard analyses that they wanted, but there was no notion that this corridor was fatally flawed. There was no objection to reversing the parking lane. And there was no specific objection to the traffic volumes, but of course they wanted us to be mindful of MTA ops, as we were, to make sure we weren't moving bus stops. So, from our perspective, I come in here with empathy because of the job you all have to do. But this applicant has been beset with a process that is coming around and biting us. I still think this is a magnificent building. I think, it'd be a great location for children. And I do think that we can make it safe with some alternative means to reduce traffic going on the corridor where we're using the wide sidewalks. And maybe that's where we might focus a follow-up discussion with this board, because as I said, a lot of this data a lot of this information that I'm hearing about DOT hasn't contacted us, and the estimates for travel volumes are, not forthcoming or documented in any materials from DOT.
All right, let me do this. Cynthia, you're the last committee member. I'm going to hold you as the last committee member to talk, and then we're going to turn it over to public comment. So Cynthia?
Yes, hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. I had 2 questions. Well, Julio kind of asked about the traffic. I had a question about the firehouse that's up the street. And I also had a question regarding, and John mentioned it earlier about the high school. So with the elementary being located there, this will be like the 5th or 6th elementary school within 10 blocks, but really no high schools. So will you be drawing your pool of students from the same pool of students? Because it might cause other schools to have enrollment issues, especially with the new school opening up the block as well pretty soon. So that was one question. And then the impact of the firehouse that's up the block, was anything studies done with that? Like how often does that house go out, those trucks go out, etc.?
So let's do the firehouse first, I guess. Kevin, is that something that you can address?
Yeah, I mean, we've been out and observing. We have 24-hour cameras for 2 weeks. We see no fire trucks present on the corridor. Having said that, you know, we that is a part of all of our processes. We FOIA, you know, fire departments in the area. They generally don't respond, and this one did not respond. But I can pull up that data to see what the number of, whether they're training or active distributions. But that's one of those things that anytime a school goes and sites in an area, you know, they coordinate with DOT, you know, they coordinate with the fire departments in the area. But it should be noted here that we have, you know, multiple physical staff at both access intersections. We have crossing guards. We have 3 staff members in front of the school with a flagman that can stop and control traffic. So, you know, I feel comfortable, you know, given what we've observed over many, many months with, you know, camera data, not even, you know, first person infield observations, that's, you know, of all of the traffic considerations, that's something that we feel have a good handle on. It's not a major, you know, impactor in this area that can't be managed by safety personnel.
Okay, then the other question, either Tricia or I'm not sure who could address the impact on other adjacent schools. What do you think the impact would be?
Sure, I can chime in around that. Our school pulls from the entire District 15 student population. So I know that there's an immediate Sunset Yard area and the schools around that, but our school pulls from the entire District 15 student population. So one, I would say that, and then 2, I think, you know, the fact that we are trying to make sure that we pull a intentionally diverse student population just means that we would be really thoughtful about our recruitment efforts in across District 15 to make sure that we are getting a healthy representation across the district.
Okay. All right. I want to hold the committee questions there. Jeremy, let's open it up to public comment. Those of you in the public that would like to comment on this, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. It can be a comment, it could be a question. It's really, I think we'll try and get an answer if there is a specific question, but you do have 3 minutes to speak. So Jeremy.
You're asking me to call these folks?
Yes, please.
I'm happy to, folks. If you look at my screen, you will see I have a timer. Where are we? 3 minutes. And when I call on you, I will allow you to unmute yourself, and then you'll have 3 minutes to talk. I will ask you to finish up. If you haven't, we will cut you off soon after that. So please finish up when we ask you to. So the first person I have is Maria Roca. Maria, you can unmute yourself now.
Unmuted. Oh my goodness, so many questions, so little time. Let me start with the questions all at once, and then hopefully they will be answered. Presently, what is the percentage of your student census from Sunset Park? And of that percentage, how many come via private bus and how many come via public transportation? And what are the percentages from elsewhere in District 15, since you say you only draw from District 15? Going for, as other question is, I could have misheard, but I only heard that pre-K to third grade would be accommodated at 39th Street. Did I hear correctly? Hello?
I believe, well, I
K
mean,
through
Maria,
5,
K through
Pre-K
5.
through fifth grade.
kindergarten through 5th grade.
Okay, fifth grade. And then there is a high school. Where is the middle school? Where are your middle school classes?
Yes, we will have a middle school that will be permanently located on 17th and 4th.
Okay, so children then, if they stay with you throughout their schooling, are going to start in Sunset Park, then they're going to go to 17th Street. And if they're from Sunset Park, they're going to be traveling to 17th Street as they move up the grades. And the high school, where is the high school? Also on 17th Street?
The high school's in Windsor Terrace off of Fort Hamilton.
I'm sorry, Fort Hamilton?
Yes, Fort Hamilton Parkway.
Okay, so children, as they go through the grades, assuming they stay with you, are going to be moving from neighborhood to neighborhood. That's interesting. What are your growth projections as to how many classes, one class per grade per year? I mean, have you done, I would assume as a business, you plan ahead. So I also have serious concerns about traffic, and people are talking about trucks, and buses, which are serious. They are the largest vehicles, but we have a serious problem with motorized two-wheel vehicles that totally do not pay attention, do not respect, do not abide by any or mostly any of the traffic
Please wrap
rules.
up, Maria.
Okay, so I will stop there, and I would like if you could answer the questions.
Yeah,
that
we'll
have not
pick
been
up those
answered.
questions. Thank you, Maria. What was the percentage of kids right now that you have from Sunset Park?
Currently 10%.
And then how many are traveling via bus to, I guess, Windsor Terrace?
Right now, about 24% of our kids are traveling to Windsor Terrace, but via bus provided by OPT, by the DOE. We don't have anybody. I think part of Maria's question was private buses. All of our kids take OPT DOE buses.
And then are there any that are taking public transportation?
I don't know the percentage offhand, but there is not a great number taking public transportation right now. But I imagine that it will change a bit when
I have projections in the environmental assessment about the mode split, and this quickly go over on this school, this siting where we match various factors. So 15% auto, 3.3% subway and rail, 1.7% city bus, 25% walk, 55% yellow bus. So the more majority of the estimated traffic volume based on parent and student surveys, and the distribution analysis we do based on the current student body and projected student body. This is kind of how the analysis is developed.
Okay, and Maria, just so you know, they did speak about how their plan was for the future and a class of 55, I believe, each year entering. So let's move on. Jeremy, next person.
I have Andrew Lang next. Andrew, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, thanks for taking my time. So I'm a Sunset Park resident. I've lived here for 15 years. I have a kid in 172, and I have a kid in the high school for Brooklyn Prospect Charter School. Full disclosure, I've also worked for them for 6 years. But I'm going to talk about this from a parent's perspective. I heard concerns about IEPs, and my son has an IEP, and what they've been able to do for us as parents and for him as a child has been great. I see as an employee, they only continue to expand that and make it more specific. As far as serving the neighborhood, they're already serving the neighborhood. I know a lot of kids that go to multiple schools that live close. They are becoming community members who are volunteering, who are doing local things to help clean up the park and stuff like that. So I think you have a valuable member of the community here. I heard the traffic concerns. I live very close to there. I mean, you're talking about the school, but should you be talking about Industry City? I mean, we let that happen, right? So I think that concern could be couched by all the things they're planning. They know what they're doing. These kids are being walked to school a lot by their parents, so they're not running around like high schoolers in the street acting foolish. I guess that's really all I have to say. I think you have a good, valuable member of the community. We need these schools here. We're building many schools, and there's still a lot more people moving to this neighborhood, and we would be a valuable member here.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Just a note, this board was actually against, did not approve the Industry City rezoning. So just a point of note there. Okay, Jeremy, the next person.
I have the Tsai family next. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Audrey Tsai. I am a parent of the founding class at the currently Windsor Terrace Elementary School. I have a now first grader. I hear all your concerns. One of the big things that I wanted to make a point of is we've come into this school in a time that it's so crazy, and this administration has gone above and beyond to keep our kids safe. And I trust them so much that, like, we've gone by the school, we've gone by the building, we see the traffic. And I really do believe that our school will take into account all those things and come up with some ways to keep our kids safe. And I trust them to do that. And I really believe in this school doing what it takes to make this building work for us. That's all.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Tsai. Jeremy, who's next?
Moment, I have Erin Dennis next. Erin, you can unmute yourself now.
Hello. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of the board for taking time to hear our application. Thank you for the timer as well. I like the Tsai family. My son is a member of the kind of founding class of the current elementary school. And I just want to make 2 points here. One, I just want to absolutely echo what Audrey just said. I have not, we get really emotional talking about it because it was so scary last year. But this administration is so competent, so good, so careful. They care so much about our kids that I would trust them to make this work. The second thing I just want to highlight is that we feel like we have won the lottery with this education. They are so supportive of my son that is going through a tough time, and they are so supportive of all of their kids. And the idea that we could bring this education to Sunset Park, we're over a little closer in Windsor Terrace, but this school is such a gift, and it's a gift to me, and I think it would just be an amazing gift to families in your community. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. Appreciate the comments there. Jeremy, who's next?
I have Angela Kozawa next. Angela, you can unmute yourself.
Hi there, everybody. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I am a parent at 3 of the network schools for Brooklyn Prospect. I have been a parent at the school for 7 years now. I have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and a member of the founding class of Windsor Terrace Elementary School. I just wanted to come on tonight and reiterate what everybody else has said about the structure and the integrity of the school that our children go to. I also just want to echo to some of the questions that were asked by the board members. These are young kids, but most of these kids are accompanied by an adult when they are coming to and from school. And if they are not accompanied by an adult, they are taking the bus system that the entire New York City school system depends on. So I do believe that we can do this in a safe way for our kids. We are incredibly excited about the opportunity to have a permanent location for our school as we grow. We've done an amazing job of recruiting throughout the district. Our children and our families come from all over the district now. While the location will change for us if we are given approval for this 39th Street location, our families, our existing two sets of families, two classes of families, already have experience commuting with our young kids to school, whether that's by subway, whether that's by walking, whether that's by taking a public bus or a school bus. Our parents and our families have already gotten into that habit, right? We are teaching our kids street safety. We're raising our kids in a city, so we have no choice but to teach our kids street safety at a very young age. So this just amplifies that by going to a school that is district-wide versus a zoned elementary school. The other thing I just want to mention goes to the IEP issue. I too have a student who has an IEP with the school. They do an incredible job of not only supporting his IEP in class, they have his therapist on site. They were able to give him his therapist during COVID. We were able to keep him on his plan. He was able to continue to progress. And this year they've even added additional resources outside of the classroom with another learning specialist to support those children and all of the children within our network school. And I just want to say again, this is an incredible neighborhood. We are a community who grows gardens and cleans parks, and we're only 100 students. So I can't even imagine what we will bring to the neighborhood when we are a full building. And I just want to say, you know, Sunset Park is very near and dear to me. I married into a family of generations who have lived in Sunset Park, born and raised their families. So it is a very special place, and I look forward to being able to have my youngest there. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kurzawa.
John, I've reached the end of the list.
Okay. Why don't we then, we'll leave it open for a few more minutes. Let me go back to any board members. Any other questions? I don't know, Julio, if that was your hand coming up again or if that was from previous.
It's a new question.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry. It should be very brief. And I apologize if I missed this earlier. This is currently an existing elementary school in Winter Terrace that is asking to relocate at Sunset Yards, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I see nodding heads. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from board members? I know I see there are several board members that are not members of the Land Use Committee. This is an opportunity if you guys want to ask a question. If not, going once. Well, let me jump back now to the public. Maria, you have a second question?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Another 3 minutes.
Oh, no, oh my goodness. What at the, I'm not sure if I sort of touched on that as to what the growth projections for the school were. But what I didn't ask was, or what I'm making an assumption, and that's always dangerous, that those growth projections are to stay in situ at 39th Street, which, am I correct in thinking that there is a thought, a plan, an expectation of taking additional space at the 39th Street building? And then my second question is, two schools, not one, but two, well, actually three, brand new schools from scratch will be opening within blocks of the 39th between 3rd and 4th site. One on 36th and 5th, one on 43rd and 4th, and one a little further out, but nevertheless 8th and I think it's 44th or 43rd. Forgive me if I forgot exactly what that's a lot of seats coming online within the next year to 2 years. Has that been taken into consideration taken into the thought process of this school's growth projections? Those are the two questions. Thank you.
I don't know, Tricia, or if we had a chart of your growth projection that you had in the presentation. I don't know if that's easy to call back up. Fay-Ann, I don't know if you're still in control of that.
And could the first question be repeated? I don't think I fully understood the first question.
I think the question was whether or not you would be looking to add additional space to accommodate any of the growth projections in your current plan.
The visual that we showed around the build out of the floors and the space use is what we anticipate needing to accommodate this growth plan. So there's no further space that we would be looking at. We're looking to take about 3,600 square feet to serve about 330 students.
And that's
clarify.
That will be your max capacity.
Yes.
Okay.
And to be clear, John, from a legal standpoint, given the fact that a school here is a non-conforming use, any additional 1 square foot would need to go through the same hearing and application process. So it's not like they can expand, even though they don't intend to. They wouldn't be able to do it anyway unless they brought an entirely new application.
Got it. And then Maria's second question was, given the number of seats they're going to open up in 3 additional schools in the area, was that taking consideration in your enrollment projections?
I can start that, but if anybody else who's able to answer that more fully, I would just say we are trying to make sure that we serve the entire District 15 population. That is who we draw from. Our wait lists for our schools are pretty robust, and so I think we feel pretty confident about making sure that we are thoughtful about filling our seats and the demand. Can't speak to other schools that are in the area and the students and demographics that they serve, but I think that just making sure that we are thoughtful about recruitment across District 15 is one of the strategies that we employ, again, because we try to be really thoughtful about making sure that we pull together a student enrollment that's representative of the entire district that we're in. And because our schools are in pretty high demand, we feel pretty good and confident to be able to fill the seats without hopefully cannibalizing any other schools in the area.
Great, thank you, Tricia. I see 2 more public comments. Jeremy?
I have Nick Mavshan next. Nick, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, how are you? Sorry, that's my husband's name. It's actually Kate Stack here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So I don't want to talk too long, but I'm another parent at the school currently at Brooklyn Prospect Windsor Terrace. And I just wanted to echo what some of the other families were saying. We've had an amazing experience. And as a parent that's had to, kind of figure out the education system in Brooklyn, I will say I've heard a lot of concern on the call that there are other schools, and one of the other parents mentioned this, but there are also just a lot of kids in Brooklyn, and it is amazing to have these choices and to have a choice in your own neighborhood of a really good school is a huge benefit. The school, as the faculty have said, is also diverse by design, super inclusive. It's such a nice community of families. We've really loved it there. My son also has an IEP, so just echoing that as well. We've had an amazing experience where he was able to get on-site help and has really improved and has always felt confident about himself. It hasn't been an issue. The school's done an amazing job kind of integrating that into their day-to-day learning. And also just to say an appreciation to the community members too. I mean, to hear all the concerns about traffic, you know, we obviously are also concerned about that and want our children to be safe. And to echo what one of the other parents said, also really trust the school to do an amazing job. They guided us through COVID, which was unprecedented as a new school. And Dana Mwanda's leadership is just amazing. And we would trust her with our kids anywhere. So just thank you to everyone on the call, and just another kind of motion of support for the school and what they could bring to the community. Thank you.
And thank you. Jeremy, who's next?
I have Andrew Lang again. Andrew, you can unmute yourself now.
Hey, thanks for having me. I had another question maybe for the council. Do we have like population growth projections for this neighborhood? Because I see it growing super rapidly. There's a lot of high density housing going up, more apartments. And I just, you know, people are concerned that we're gonna be stealing from the neighborhood, but the neighborhood's gonna need it more and more. You know, we could talk about the census, but I don't think everybody answered it honestly. And we have a lot more people here than we're saying. You know, in curriculum, we haven't talked about it. You know, we teach Mandarin and Spanish at this school, and you know, that's the neighborhood. The Mandarin in particular, there are kids who take that all the way through and then take it in college. So I do think that that's valuable. And you guys are noticing a lot of parents calling here today have IEPs. They're doing a good job, period. I'm done.
Thanks, Mr. Lang. I would encourage you, if you want, if you're interested, to come by a community board meeting, because we do talk about the growth in the district and how issues of affordable housing, transportation, as well as schools are all affected by the growth in the district. And we would love to have your input as well, if you do live in the district. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else on the board. Jeremy, are you seeing anybody else?
No hands, John.
Okay, I am actually going to call the hearing with that. And I want to thank everybody for dialing in. Those of you who provided testimony, we will be entering your names and your testimony into our official record. So regardless of how the committee will vote, it will be on that record that we will pass on to the full board next week, or on the 20th. I'm sorry. That's our board meeting, November 20th. And then which way the board votes at that meeting will then be handed on to the next level. Well, it will be sent to the Board of Standards and Appeals. So again, I thank you all.
Don, I'm so sorry. I know that you're trying to wrap up, but I'm getting a note that we might have some other parents who are unsure how to comment. I know you're trying to close it, but I also want to make sure that we have parents.
If you don't mind, this is an open call for anybody who wishes to comment. We will take written testimony if you want to email the board. Jeremy, is there the best practice here is to send to BK07 or?
So we could take testimony even up to and the evening of our board meeting. There's an opportunity to give testimony. We ask not for repetitive testimony before any vote at the board meeting, but we also, of course, take written testimony of any length that could be sent to our board's email address, which is bk07@cb.nyc.gov. I'll repeat that, BK like Burger King, 07 @ cb like communityboard.nyc.gov. I see John laughing, but you remember it, right?
Yeah, it's that mental mind thing. Okay, so again, we welcome everybody's comments. This is a community process here. We want to make sure that we capture everybody's views on it. And as I said, we put together a full report and that gets sent over to the Board of Standards of Appeals.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rich.
John, so can you, and I apologize, this just came out, but can you tell me the phasing of your discussion, the committee vote, and then the full board? Because in particular, I know that there's information that Nick had requested. We'd like to get things back to the committee. So I was just wondering, like, our opportunity to do that prior to the time where you guys make a resolution.
Well, the land use committee will be meeting shortly, as is our typical process. I think I'm going to have to ask, I'm going to poll the committee when we go into committee session and ask what the feeling of the committee is, because yes, there are several items that I have on my list here. I mean, I'll just put this out here. I think we do want to see if there is some data on impact on, we say where school is pulling from the entire district. I think we'd like to see from what portions of the district, either by zip code or some way of sorting, finding out if only 10% are coming from Sunset Park, where the others coming from. I see something about, acknowledging full well, Kevin, that you're just hearing about the whole DOT thing, just as we are. We may want to hear your perspective, or if there's any data that could be put together as to what the impact of that change might be on 39th Street. I don't know how or why, or if DOT is going to be willing to give us something, but we may want to find out from your perspective what those numbers might be. I know Nick was interested in hearing from Hill West, the mechanical systems, just to confirm the couple questions he asked about HEPA filtration, as well as the 4th Avenue ventilation. And then I think, I'm sorry, I think we do want to talk a little bit more about the arrival departure protocol. And I know that was, part of your presentation, Kevin. I think part of, we might want to just call up those slides again. So we would, Rich, like to have the presentation sent back to the board, what you showed tonight.
John, I could forward you the student safety plan, which is sort of more comprehensive than the summary here. It's not super long. It's not like a 300-page section of the transportation section that, along with the PowerPoint may provide more information.
But I think I want to poll the committee first, because we do have, actually, there are quite a few people in the committee here tonight. I want to see what their feeling is of this additional information and see how they want to proceed. Okay, this closes the public hearing for this project. Thank you all for attending. My thanks to Richard and to Prospect Schools and Kevin and Amber for presenting tonight. And we will reconvene as the Land Use Committee in a moment. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for creating the space for us to come.
Thank you. Land Use Committee, please stay on.
John, is this one of those situations where we're permitted to observe but not attend?
All our meetings are public.
Okay, thank you, John.
You're stealing my lines, John.
Oh, sorry, Jeremy. Yes, I do want to mention to all those who are staying on from the committee, it is a public meeting, continued. All our meetings and all our events are public. So not saying that Richard is not listening in, but he may be, so just be aware.
And all our meetings are also available in perpetuity on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch this presentation and discussion again. Go to YouTube and in the search, type in Brooklyn Community Board 7. And when you're there, why not subscribe to our channel?
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
And,
you,
whenever
Jeremy.
it's ready, I will call the roll.
Get that plug in.
Minutes. Hey, I'm getting used to it now.
Actually, Jeremy, there were a bunch of other board members on the line. Did you capture those names?
I captured a lot of them. I don't know if I got everyone because I was doing 3 things, but I
Understood.
did capture a lot of them.
Okay, great.
We will get a list though of everybody who attended, who joined us tonight.
Great. So why don't we go ahead and call the land use committee roll?
All right, folks, I'm going to mute everybody once again, except for myself. I'm only calling land use committee members. When I call your name, please unmute yourself, acknowledge I called your name, and then mute yourself again. And we will start with John Fontillis.
I have unmuted myself and I am here.
Thank you, John. You were acknowledged. Nick Azadian.
Still present.
Acknowledged. Alexa Aviles. Joan Body.
Still here.
Thank you, Joan. Acknowledged. Cynthia Gonzalez. Kenny Guan. Zachary Jacy.
Here. Still here. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Christina Lem. Christina. Jimmy Lee.
Present.
Thank you. Arelis Martinez. Antoinette Martinez. Paul Mack. Marilyn Melman. Daniel Murphy. Katie Walsh. Fred Wolf. Roll is called, John. John?
John, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Jeremy, we had a change in community membership last week, right? Is that? Because I thought Sandra was on the committee. Is that not right?
When you, so sorry, this committee was scheduled before we made that change. So I agree with you. I remember that, but this was printed up before the change was made. So I will acknowledge that.
All right. So Sandra, and is there somebody else that?
Nick was made vice chair.
All right, but Sandra can vote, correct?
You can vote.
Okay, Sandra, I saw you there. Didn't want you to be on this committee in vain. So you are there, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Let me just say off the top here that I think there are several items of data that I think we should ask for, including, the ones that I had rolled off at the end of the meeting there, in addition to, I think, more color on the site selection process of the 17 sites that they looked at. I know they had showed in the EAS or one of the items that came across in the packet, 1 or 2 sentences as to why each of the other sites did not fall out or fall into consideration. As we did with Brooklyn Rise, I think we do need to ask a little bit more descriptive sort of process as to why each of those sites were not selected. Because I think for the record, we need to have that information in order to make the appeal to the board, the full board. So that said, I mean, is there a feeling that is there anything else here that we need to know about the application that would help your deliberation on it?
I do think there's a piece of information that would help. Sorry, this is Zach. I think that we should look at what the average speed of vehicles on this block is, because it is oftentimes very congested. I would garner a guess that the average speed is under 10 miles an hour. Something to take into account. It's not 39th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue, 39th Street between 3rd and 4th. So it's a much slower movement of traffic. And that is something that is worth thinking about.
What do you say it's slower? What, because of the hill
Because
or
of the backup, because of what they were saying about the light sequencing, purposeful light sequencing at 39th and 3rd. So the traffic naturally gets backed up between 3rd and 4th, and the traffic does not move as fast as it does between 4th and 5th, and 5th and 6th, and 6th and 7th, where it moves much faster. So by the time it gets down between 3rd and 4th, the truck traffic and all the traffic is really, I'm almost positive the average speed is going to be under 10 miles an hour. So
okay.
That's something that's not something that should be overlooked.
Okay. Let me go to Joan, then Julio, then Cynthia. Joan, did you have a comment on other information that we should ask for?
Well, the other issue with me is it backs up to 38th Street. We don't know when they did this testing, that they say it passed the emissions. That usually, when the light is red on 4th Avenue, that off ramp is backed up bumper to bumper. And when the Gowanus 90% of the time is bumper to bumper, that waiting list goes way back on top of the highway. So I not only had a problem with this building at the time when it came up for review, when it was empty for the first time. And all good conscience, I cannot vote positive for the building. I have nothing against the organization. I agree with the parents and that they're in good standing, but our community did not vote. 99% did not vote positive for the location a couple of weeks ago. This is 1,000, well, maybe even 1,000 times worse, 39th Street than 43rd Street between 2nd and 3rd.
Joan, you said that the site selection committee had reviewed this site. Do you have those dates of when it came up in front of your committee?
No, I don't remember, because now we're going back a few years. And it also came up at a board meeting with the School Construction Authority. Schools Construction Authority, when they approve a building, there has to be parking for the school buses. All right, this is a charter school and they don't have school buses. The children are walking to the school. But we were told right here that the parents bring the child into the school. I don't know about that. That could be part of the time. That could be not part of the time. I just can't. This is just not fit for a school.
Understood. And Joan, because you are the chair of that committee, I don't know, Jeremy, if there's any way we can find out when it was last reviewed, because I think unfortunately, that's a huge negative for the site. If we've already
go back in the files, but we have 10 years worth of files we could easily go through.
Because obviously if we've reviewed this site for just a regular school expansion, then there's a question of what is the difference here. And maybe, I don't know, John, unless you have something else, anything else to add on that?
He also, when I brought up the fact that cars park half on the sidewalk and half off, I haven't been down that block lately. But when I reviewed that block and I saw cars parked half on the sidewalk, not on the same side of, not on the north side of the building, of the street. That's the side where this location is. On the south side of the street, yes, they were parked half on the sidewalk and half in the street because there's no parking there. But if somebody is making a delivery with a car, they have to put the car somewhere. And the buses are going up and down the block, and the B35. How many of the B35s now are tandem? So that's not one bus, that's two buses in one.
Right.
On both sides of the street. If they're tandem on Church Avenue, well then they stop on First Avenue. So they're tandem all the way down to First Avenue.
Okay. Maybe that's a question we could ask. Julio, is there a significant difference between, a charter school and a public, sort of standard school relative to, busing or I mean, they said that it's the same yellow buses that serve the rest of the schools, right?
Yes, so they do qualify, and I do believe they get the same busing, and I think Cynthia Felix is probably better suited to answer that question. But I think oh darn, I completely forgot my question now. No, now I remember. I guess the question I had and kind of I wanted to get more information and clarification. Since the school is going to be relocating from Windsor Terrace, I don't necessarily know if we got any information from this. I'd like to know the demographic breakdown of the student population of the school. When the Windsor Terrace community is very different from Sunset Park. And I do know, they pull from District 15 as a whole. I'm just curious of the background. And just to piggyback off of Joan, this site I do know was a potential location for Sunset Park High School when we were talking about it way back in 2005, and we said no.
Okay. Julio, you're looking for demographics in terms of race, ethnicity, and gender, or is it by zip
Correct.
code? What?
Correct.
Or both?
Racial and ethnic background.
Okay. All right. I mean, honestly, if it's one of these things. If it's been reviewed before, I mean, I think it's a significant piece of the analysis. So unless Julio, you have anything else, let me jump to Cynthia, then Nick, then Zach again, and then Sandra. Cynthia?
Yeah, so the busing system is the same. In answer to your first question, John, they are entitled based on distance. And if the only 10% are coming from Sunset Park, they probably would get more busing because the kids would be coming the other way, right? And
Right.
that's the larger population. 90% is not from Sunset Park. So you may have more busing, Joan, than less. So that's just something to consider. And also, not to harp on it, but going back to the enrollment, we're expecting about 1,000 new seats to be open in between the new schools that are coming. But there's been a decline in enrollment in the Board of Ed overall, and of course in District 15, and in particularly in our elementary schools. We did have a large issue with overcrowding, but thanks to the advocacy and Joan going out there in her car and finding seats, it's no longer such a huge issue. Joan, that paid off, so thank you. She was in her car up and down all these years and getting those locations and advocating. So it might come up again, but right now it's not so overcrowded in the elementary. More middle and high school actually probably would be needed, or specialized schools. In fact, Chalkbeat did an article that I sent to Nick and John in August about this, about exactly as overcrowding eases in Sunset Park, all these new school seats are set to open. So I would be interested, like Julio, exactly the demographics, where they're coming from, and how that really is going to impact our local schools, because we don't want to open a school that will have other schools lose seats, you know? So I would be interested in that as well.
Well, again, I have a high schooler, so I'm not, and actually he went to St. Joseph, so Catholic school system. But when I think of overcrowding in Sunset Park, I think of having classes or sort of the easing of overcrowding. I think of getting rid of classes in broom closets and putting them into faculty offices. I mean, have we reached a point now where things are properly situated in terms of classrooms and kids in classrooms, as opposed to every tiny space that's available?
Yeah, in some schools. So one of the schools that's closest, PS 24, the principal actually spoke at the CEC meeting. So CEC 15 had a meeting about the charter school relocation that you may want to listen in and see what those members had to say, because she had concerns. Her enrollment is, her building utilization rate is now 82%. And she is a barrier-free building. She has specialized programs, all kinds of things.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, Nick, Zach, and then Sandra. Nick?
To me, the crux of this really boils down to the traffic issues. And I think they will need to demonstrate, what means additionally to what they presented to try to make transit to the school safe for the children. The ventilation concerns that I brought up that Joan echoed earlier, those can be fixed. It's just, it costs money and it's an operational budget for them, where, they may have to employ carbon filters, which, we've put in plenty of lab buildings. They're expensive and they have to be maintained, but you can do that. And the air comes out as pure as if it was off a mountain. This costs money. But, the one thing you can't fix is where it's located along 39th Street. And, so far, I don't believe that they've, really demonstrated how they would achieve that, because they're using, data that's dated. DOT doesn't look forward, unfortunately, or they don't look at all for
They
that
don't
matter.
look anyway. Right.
But the point is that if you're expecting a 30 or 40% increase in truck traffic, where do you think it's going to go? And so I think really the analysis would have to focus on, potential future transit flows and how that impacts that avenue, and then what they're going to do to really, mitigate that. And, I don't think anyone's really thought of that. And, the presentations, though, significantly better than the ones that were previously done for the other school, I don't think they really adequately addressed that point.
Well, can I ask you and to Zach next, what does success look like? I mean, what would answer your question of what additional means would keep the kids safe? I mean Kevin mentioned that there's a much wider sidewalk on 39th Street. Probably it's a 20-foot rather than 15.
My answer to this is going to probably run right into, Zach and what his committee does, which is potentially changing 39th Street so it's no longer a truck route. And that probably would do it. And, perhaps that's really the onus on the applicant to go petition DOT to go modify that. Now, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent for the board and the other impacts specific to the transportation committee, I don't know. But in my opinion, I think that would probably do it along with the other measures. Otherwise, I've almost been mowed down by a truck. I don't know how many times just living here. And, I'm not 3 feet tall, going to school.
Your mom's not holding your hand as you walk across the street?
No, my wife is, but
Zach, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, what would be if we were to ask for the world, is there a way to keep these kindergartners?
If we were to ask for the world, we would ask for entrance ramps onto the BQE at 39th and 38th Street. and we would get all the trucks off the streets of New York City, like Nick said. But this is a truck route. There are trucks. We are, and unfortunately, the city is embracing more truck traffic with the last mile distribution hubs. The city's not thinking proactively about getting trucks outside of the city and having our last mile distribution hubs in Bayonne, New Jersey, or the edge of Staten Island, and then driving. Instead, we're bringing the large trucks to us. So it's a problem. And yes, 39th Street was great. If that wasn't a truck route, I live on 40th Street. I wouldn't miss the trucks at all. But that's a long way from ever happening. And I agree that the traffic is what is the biggest hiccup with this proposal on 39th Street. But I think it should be looked at and studied as to exactly what some workable solutions could be, because I don't think we want to not have more seats for students, even if we're claiming that overcrowding is over. So 32 kids in a classroom, that's still overcrowded. Why not shoot for 24 kids in a classroom? We should, and why not get ahead of this? If it's going to be overcrowded again in the future, then we'll be prepared and have more seats. I don't think we ever want to say no and turn schools away. We need seats, and seats can be, and if we have too many seats for kindergartners and first graders and second graders, then there'll become seats for middle schoolers. Seats are what we need. And all our kids go through New York City public schools, and we know the size of their classes, and take high school tours, and high schools schedules are staggered because not everyone can fit in the hallway, and nobody has lockers. So I don't think this is overcrowding as an issue that's behind us in the least. And as far as the site selection, this particular site, we've never looked at. We looked at this site, yes, for the high school in 2005, but this building was not in existence. Since this building has come online in 2017, this site has never come up with the site selection committee. That I know for a fact. That's all I have to say.
John, does that sound about right? Joan, I was just asking if 2005 sounds about right in terms of because it was considered as part of the high school site selection.
I'm sorry, say that again, John.
Did we last look at this site when we were looking for the alternate sites for the high school? Does that sound about right?
You're gonna give me a kiss. Bye. What?
Sandra,
Why?
Sandra, just one second. Let me just get Jones here. Go ahead, John.
If this was a high school, then yes. Older children, but not for younger children.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Sandra, did you have a comment?
Yeah, what I want to say is that I was just thinking about what John was saying about the traffic, and they said that they have 20% of the students with special needs. So it means that when the bus comes to deliver them, it will take even longer because some of the students will come in a wheelchair. So I didn't see that they address how, if they have like a space for the bus to just go on the side for them to get out. So I was just kind of concerned about that.
I think they said that actually it was 20% of the students have IEPs, individualized, learning experience programs. So I'm not sure if it was really meant in terms of physical disabilities. I think it was more kids with special needs relative to learning. So, but we could confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
John.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have a little problem hearing, but anyway, did Julio say that the charter schools do not have their own buses, or the children just come via public transportation or are brought with parents?
I think Cynthia, you answered that. And since you had your hand up, Cynthia, can you just repeat what you said relative to busing?
Sure, Joan. So the charter schools are entitled to the same yellow busing under the same guidelines as public schools. So it goes by distance.
Oh,
So
okay.
they could use the yellow OPT buses.
And there's no place for buses on that school buses on that block for children.
No, I
On that
believe
block.
they have the parking lot that's on the south side. If I remember, I'll have to take a look back at their application, but I believe they're using that parking lot to the south to do some movements in and out.
Is that parking lot part of the building?
Yes, it's part of the same site.
So the parking lot and the building would be owned by the same owner.
I believe that is the case. But let me get back to you on that. I need to call up their presentation to find out. Okay, Cynthia, did you have another comment? Did you want to add?
Yes. So just going back to the whole point, I know you asked and they said it was due to enrollment numbers, but really considering it instead of an elementary for the high school as well, I think that some of the concerns might be eased if they were for older children. And to Zach's point, yes, we never want to give up space, but the schools that are opening are all elementary schools. So this would be another elementary school. We don't have any middle or high schools opening. So maybe that's a greater need. So maybe we could look at enrollment trends, ask for enrollment trends and see where the need really is as we plan out schools.
So you're saying this might be a win-win, get another high school in the district if they were able to
Correct.
locate there? Okay.
Correct. If it would be a high school, it might be, we would still have to address the traffic concerns, but a lot of the traffic concerns have to do because they're younger children. Maybe with older children, people would feel more comfortable. I'm not sure, but I think I would. With smaller children, we always look at it differently with the busing and everything else, and maybe less buses, but maybe look at the enrollment trends to see. I know that they mentioned the reason they didn't consider the high school was because the number of students that they need the space for. And the high school is a greater number. I believe that's what they said.
Yeah, so right now I think they have 600. They were looking to do max 330 here at this site.
Right.
So you can imagine, I would assume that would double their space need, and
Right.
that's a commercial building, right? So the question is, will that building owner provide the tenant fit out dollars to allow them to take additional space? And I would assume a high school is a lot different. I don't know, you guys know better than I. High school layouts in terms of the classrooms and the things that are needed, probably much bigger and much more space. It requires much more space. So, but
That may not be feasible.
right, but we can certainly ask the question about enrollment trends and sort of the need in the district. Thanks, Cynthia. Let me go to Pat.
Hi, everyone. My comment or question is in regard to something that came up in the Q&A. And to avoid offending anyone, could someone, be it Julio or Cynthia, give the definition of IEP?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So an IEP is an individual education plan. It doesn't, and it is for students who require specialized supports, whether it's related services or a small class size. The disabilities do not have to be physical. There's a continuum of services that are provided under an IEP.
Thank you. And I just hope that no one is offended by whatever questions were brought up before in regard to IEP. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. Let me just put it out there. I really wish somebody would deck over the train yard behind. I think it would be a great. Yeah, I know, it's money, but hey, I can dream, can't I? But if there's some way to create essentially a whole deck back there that, you know, you could have buses, you could have drop off essentially in a safe zone on the back side of the building, that to me would be the optimal approach. And we've talked about it, right? I mean, when the Gowanus Expressway was under construction, they had to put their corporation yard somewhere to store all their trucks and everything. And wasn't that an idea to build a deck over the train yard on 38th Street as a temporary thing? Or am I showing my age, Jeremy? I don't know.
John, when wasn't the Gowanus Expressway under construction?
That's true. That is very true. But I mean, we've been trying to find a way to implement some sort of way to recover that land because it's just sitting there. I mean, again, I don't want to use a Hudson Yards analogy, but it's 2 full blocks of land that you could use the air rights above for public purpose, whether or not it's schools or affordable housing or et cetera.
And air rights are so expensive that I even had a private conversation with School Construction Authority. And they told me, we won't do it because air rights are very expensive. And that was the end of that conversation. Very expensive.
Well, maybe our former
air rights,
state
air rights, and then they have to build.
That's true. But you know, who knows? Maybe our former state senator and borough president and perhaps mayor in the next couple of days may look fondly on his days in Sunset Park and representing Sunset Park and make it a mayoral priority or initiative. Just saying. All right. I have a proposal. I know Rich, you're on the line here as well. I think there are several questions that we may want to get data on that will provide an official response. I don't think I would like the committee. Well, let me poll the committee. Does the committee feel like they have all the information to make to do a vote tonight on this application? I'll just go online. Nick, what's your feeling? Joan? You want to vote tonight? Okay, Jimmy? Jimmy, you there?
Get our questions answered first.
The question I'm putting out to the committee is, do we feel that we have enough information to take a vote as a land use committee tonight?
Yes.
You do feel like you have enough information? Joan?
Yes.
Okay. Jimmy?
I think we might need more information.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going back to my list here. Shoot,
Zach and Sandra.
Zach,
I think we should wait. I think we should wait for more information and then make the proper vote.
Okay, Sandra?
More information.
Okay. So, am I missing anybody else? I
don't believe so.
Okay, those are the 5 that are on the committee. So, and I also feel like we should ask for some additional information. Again, just going over the list here. I think we'd like to review their arrival departure protocol. I know they had a couple of exhibits in their application. I think we should review that closely because I do feel bad. I kind of gave Kevin the short shrift. We should look at the data that he's pulled together on that. Plus, there is a question of, are there some alternatives relative to bus drop-offs and scheduling traffic that he alluded to that maybe we should have a more formal proposal on? And then what are the improvements on the sidewalk environment that would just not just putting parsley around the pig, but really would significantly change the sidewalk environment and make it safer? That's sort of an open question. Second, the response to the the heat pump, the ventilation, filtration, drawing air for the Avenue side. I want an official response to that. Because the IEP question came up again, I think we just want, to clarify and make sure that we've got how many kids have IEPs that are currently enrolled. And then I think separately, which was Cindy Vanderbosch's questions, physical disabilities. Are there a number of kids who have those at the current school? I think we want an official response to the 20th Street bus conversion or bus route conversion. Kevin, it's first time he had heard of that. So I think we want an official response or additional data collected that would include that into the mix. Some further color on how they're feeling about impact on other adjacent schools might be relative to the questions, Cynthia, that you raised in terms of enrollment numbers. And then really, to maybe ask them point blank whether or not a high school is infeasible at this site. Essentially, if one, if one could obtain from the building owner a couple additional floors, if one could design a high school in that footprint that makes sense, if Windsor Terrace could then become a elementary school, flip the two, would that feel better to us as a committee? Sorry, I'm just going through, I got a couple more here. And then the race, ethnicity, and gender breakdown demographics. Am I missing anything here? I think that's it. And then more description of the site selection process and why those 17 other sites were not feasible. Average speed of vehicles on block as well. All right, how does that sound to the committee? If we gave those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 items over as requests for information. Now, what this means is we'll have to reschedule a land use meeting. We won't vote on this at the board on the 20th. So we'll have to give official notice to the applicant that that's what we're doing. And then I guess sometime either later November, early December, we'll meet again as a committee separately. And then this would come up probably at the December board meeting. Now I know, Jeremy, they're on the clock or whatever, they've already submitted to BSA, but I don't think the committee is ready to make a vote tonight.
You addressed me. I don't know how to respond to that. I agree with those statements.
Okay.
Okay, please just don't make it November the 18th.
Or how about the 25th or 26th? How about that?
No, not the 18th. I have a board meeting that night.
Okay. I think that's where the committee's standing right now. Jeremy, I'll draft a quick note that we'll send out describing our request for information and what we see as the process. I mean, I honestly, I'll just say from my point of view, we first got wind of the application essentially when it was coming up with Brooklyn Rise, but this is the first sort of presentation we got on the application. So partly there's a lot of things that we came up during Brooklyn Rise that I'm certain Rich and Kevin and the school understand our concerns from the last go around, but I don't want to, honestly, I want to give them a chance to respond. That's my gut feeling here, that I don't want to close off the discussion so fast, but give them a chance to respond. And then, yes, it's a delay of a month. I mean, if I were in their point of view, every month is X thousands of dollars of escalation. I understand, but I just don't think we can represent to the full board, the full deliberation till we get this information. Is everybody on the committee okay with that? Or are there any people
Okay.
against that thought process? Certainly willing to entertain comments. All right.
I think that sounds good to me. Yeah. Thanks, John.
All right, great. When Joan gives me the thumb to the side of the nose, I know that I got to go. All right, so Jeremy, I will probably talk to you tomorrow with comments, and then
John, the city has granted me a holiday tomorrow, so I'll speak to you on Wednesday.
I heard about that. DDC also is complete. What holiday? I don't understand. It's not Veterans Day, right?
It's called Election Day.
Oh.
Well, then Maria and the.
Why did I totally forget about that?
John, I'd just like to thank you for another wonderfully run meeting. Appreciate it.
Rousing excitement, I know, but I
No,
appreciate.
really.
No, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. From one cool chair to another. I appreciate it. I mean, we got all the chairs here. I mean, I got Joan, I got Nick, I got
There's a bunch of point guards.
I know these guys. This is like the top shelf group here. So I appreciate everybody for joining in for so long, and I release you to go have some fun tonight. All right, thanks everybody.
Have a great night, everybody.
Have a great night.
Bye bye.
Hi, thank you.